April 23, 1943, 5:47 a.m. The Caterpillar D7 idles in the pre-dawn darkness of Richmond Shipyard Number Three, its four-cylinder D8800 diesel engine hammering out a steady rhythm that vibrates through the steel operator's seat. Margaret Maggie Flynn, 28 years old, adjusts her leather work gloves and wraps both hands around the clutch levers. Behind her, 14,000 pounds of tractor and blade wait for direction. In front of her, more than a half-acre of mudflat needs grading before the morning shift arrives to pour concrete for Liberty Ship foundations. The foreman told her yesterday she had 1 week to prove herself. Every man in the yard is watching to see if she fails. She'd been a telephone operator at Pacific Bell until December. Then her husband's troop ship left San Francisco for Guadalcanal, and sitting at a switchboard connecting other people's conversations felt like drowning in shallow water. The Kaiser Richmond Shipyards were hiring anyone who could pass a physical. The recruitment poster showed a woman in coveralls holding a wrench. Maggie showed up on January 4, 1943, expecting to weld or rivet. The hiring manager looked at her driver's license. "Says here you grew up on a farm in Modesto. You ever operate heavy equipment?" "Tractors," she said, "combines, grain trucks." He sent her to the equipment yard where a D7 sat among a fleet of cranes and forklifts. "Bulldozer operator," he said, "pays 78 cents an hour. Are you interested?" She'd never seen a machine that size. The D7 stood 8 feet tall, 16 feet long, 8 feet wide. It weighed 31,870 pounds. The blade alone was 10 feet across and 4 feet high. The engine displacement was 831 cubic inches, more than 6 times the size of her father's farm tractor. But the controls looked familiar. Clutches, brake bands, a hand throttle. She climbed into the open operator's station and fired up the auxiliary pony motor. That's a small 2-cylinder gasoline engine that turned over the main diesel. When the diesel caught, the whole machine shook like something alive. The training lasted 4 hours. She learned the 5 forward gears and 4 reverse gears, how to angle the blade 30 degrees left or right, how to read the terrain for soft spots that would bog down the tracks. The instructor was a CB named Morrison who'd operated bulldozers in the Aleutians. He showed her how to feel the load through the vibration in the seat, so how to know when the tracks were about to lose purchase in mud. "This machine can push 20,000 pounds through clay," he said, "but it'll sink to the frame if you hit a water pocket. You got to think 3 moves ahead." She spent the first 2 weeks grading access roads. The work was repetitive but technical. Too much blade angle and you'd windrow the dirt instead of spreading it. Too little downward pressure and you'd skim the surface. The D7's manual clutch and brake steering required constant input. Pulling the left clutch to turn left, you have the right to turn right, both to stop. Her arms ached for a week. The men gave her space at first, watching from a distance. Some were waiting for her to quit. Others were waiting for her to prove something. On February 9th, a lumber truck got stuck in mud near the Ways 2 slipway. The driver had tried to back out and buried the rear axle to the differential. 3 men with shovels worked for an hour and gained 6 inches. The shift supervisor sent for Maggie. She brought the D7 across the yard, saw it threaded through the prefabrication buildings, and positioned the blade against the truck's rear bumper. She adjusted the throttle to 800 RPM and eased into second gear, feeling the resistance through the clutch. The truck moved 4 feet. She reversed, repositioned, pushed again. 2 minutes later, the truck was on solid ground. The 3 men with shovels watched without speaking. One of them, a welder named Kowalski, nodded once before walking away. Under this video, you'll see a subscribe button, a small action with a big meaning. By pressing it, you're not only supporting the creation of more content like this, but you're also becoming part of the very exchange we've been talking about, giving and receiving in harmony. It's not about the size of the action, it's about the meaning. A simple subscription tells me these words reached you. It tells me that the effort, the late nights, and the discipline to bring this message forward mattered to someone on the other side of the screen. If you want to see how Maggie proved every skeptic wrong and became the fastest grade operator in the entire Richmond complex, please hit that like button. It helps us share more forgotten stories. Subscribe if you haven't already. Back to Richmond, February 1943. By March, Kaiser Richmond employed over 79,000 workers across 4 shipyards. Women made up 13.7% of production workers, but within the labor category, the hardest, dirtiest jobs, women were 40.7% of the workforce. They scaled hulls, burned metal, or operated cranes, and drove bulldozers. The International Brotherhood of Boilermakers had resisted admitting women, but production quotas left no choice. Ships needed launching. Ground needed preparing. The war moved faster than union bylaws. Maggie's job expanded. She graded the foundation area for Shipyard Number 4 when it opened in April 1943. She cleared debris fields after Liberty ship launchings. The ways would be covered in timber scraps, dropped rivets, welding rod stubs, all of it needing removal before the next keel could be laid. She learned to work at night when the temperature dropped and the diesel ran cooler. The D7's headlights threw harsh shadows across the yard, turning every pile of scrap into an obstacle course. She developed a rhythm: blade down, push forward, blade up, reverse, turn, repeat. 8 hours of it. 10 during rush jobs. The speed record started in the summer. The SS Joseph N. Teal had been built in 10 days. Showed the SS Robert E. Peary in 4 days, 15 hours, 29 minutes. Every time a ship launched ahead of schedule, the pressure intensified. Henry Kaiser wanted more. Edgar Kaiser, running operations, wanted faster. The Maritime Commission wanted deliveries. Maggie's role was simple: keep the ground ready. When a Liberty ship slid down the ways, she had 6 hours to grade the area, compact the surface, and prepare for the next hull assembly. She usually finished in 4. There was no ceremony to it. The men stopped noticing her gender and started timing her cycles. She could complete a full grading pass. Blade angle set, 3 forward runs, 2 backing passes for compaction in 18 minutes. The previous operator, a man named Henderson who transferred to crane work, averaged 23. She didn't think about speed. She thought about rhythm. The D7 had its own cadence. You worked with it or you fought it, and fighting cost time. In June, a photographer from the Office of War Information toured the shipyards documenting homefront production. He photographed women welders on the SS George Washington Carver hull. He photographed scalers and burners and riveting teams. He found Maggie on the D7 during a night shift grading the approach to Ways 11. She was in the middle of a run, blade angled 15 degrees, 3rd gear, moving 4 cubic yards of fill per pass. The photographer asked her to stop for a portrait. She shook her head and kept working. He took the picture anyway, a woman in coveralls and work gloves, face partially obscured by the D7's frame, surrounded by dirt and diesel smoke and the skeletal outlines of ship hulls under construction. The war changed math. Richmond built 747 ships between 1941 and 1945. Production hours per ship dropped from 523,569 to 349,494 between September 1942 and June 1943. Liberty ships carried 2,840 jeeps, or 440 tanks, or 230 million rounds of rifle ammunition. Every ship required foundation work. Every launch required cleanup. Every delay meant sailors waited longer for supplies. Maggie's job existed in that equation, a variable between raw earth and finished slipway. She saw the men from her shift get draft notices. Some went willingly. Others tried to get exemptions through critical war work classifications. The shipyards were classified essential industry, but the draft boards didn't always care. 3 D7 operators left for Army Engineering battalions in July. 2 crane operators went in August. The replacements were younger or older or female. The work continued. The ships launched. The ground got graded. The pressure broke people in different ways. A welder named Patricia Simmons had a breakdown in the changing room in September, crying that her hands wouldn't stop shaking. An electrician fell asleep at his workstation and got written up. Maggie saw a rigger freeze on a scaffold 70 feet above the ways, unable to move up or down until 2 teammates climbed up and talked him through the descent. The Shipyard Medical Center treated exhaustion, minor injuries, heat stroke, and what the doctors called industrial fatigue. Kaiser Permanente, the health plan Henry Kaiser created for his workers, kept people functional enough to return to the line. Maggie worked 6 days a week, sometimes 7. She lived in a boarding house in Richmond with 8 other women, sharing 2 bathrooms and a kitchen. Rent was $30 a month. She sent $40 home to her mother in Modesto and saved whatever remained after food. On Sundays when she didn't work, she wrote letters to her husband. She didn't know where he was. Yes, the letters went to an APO address and disappeared into military postal channels. Sometimes she got replies, sometimes she didn't. December 1943. Richmond hit peak production. The yards employed 90,000 workers, building ships in shifts that ran 24 hours. At night, the welding arcs lit up the hulls like small suns. The noise never stopped. Hammering, grinding, diesel engines, compressed air tools, crane cables, ship whistles. Until Maggie's hearing started going in her left ear, the one closest to the D7's exhaust stack. She didn't report it. Everyone had something wrong. You kept working or you went home, and going home wasn't an option. The recognition came quietly. In January 1944, the shift supervisor, a different man now, the previous one having transferred to the Portland shipyards, called her into the office. She thought she was being fired. Instead, he offered her a promotion to equipment coordinator, she managing the D7 fleet across all 4 Richmond yards. More responsibility, more hours, $10 an hour. "Why me?" she asked. He looked at her like the question was stupid. "You're faster than anyone else. You don't break equipment, you show up." He paused. "Also, half my operators are women now. Seems right to have one running the show." She took the job. She trained 6 new D7 operators between January and March, teaching them the same lessons Morrison had taught her. Read the terrain, while feel the load, think 3 moves ahead. She scheduled maintenance rotations to prevent breakdowns. She coordinated grading schedules around launch times. She kept the ground ready. The war in Europe ended May 8, 1945. The war in the Pacific ended August 15th. The Richmond Shipyards started shutting down in September. By December, employment had dropped to 10,000. The women were laid off first, regardless of skill or seniority. Maggie's last day was October 12, 1945. She shut down the D7 she'd operated for 32 months, cleaned the operator's station, and walked out of Shipyard Number 3 for the last time. No ceremony, no acknowledgement. The machine would be sold as surplus or scrapped. Her husband came home in November. He'd been in the Philippines for most of the war, survived 2 malaria bouts, and weighed 40 pounds less than when he'd shipped out. They moved back to Modesto. She never operated a bulldozer again. She got a job at the telephone company. When people asked what she did during the war, she said she worked at the shipyards. Most didn't ask for details. The Richmond Shipyards built more ships than any other facility in the country. The D7 bulldozers moved millions of cubic yards of earth. The women who operated them, Margaret Flynn and dozens like her, enabled production that changed naval warfare. None of them are household names. The photographs show them occasionally, small figures dwarfed by machinery, faces half hidden by equipment and shadow. What remains is the record: ships launched, tons moved, hours worked, wages earned. Maggie Flynn died in 1987. Now 63 years old in Modesto. Her obituary mentioned she'd worked at Kaiser Richmond during the war. It didn't mention the D7, the grading schedules, the speed records, the men she trained, the ships she enabled. Those details disappeared with her, along with the muscle memory of clutch resistance and the sound of a diesel engine running wide open in 3rd gear. The D7 she operated, serial number 7M7492, built in 1943, likely ended up in a scrapyard or sold surplus to a construction company. Audi track-type tractors don't have individual histories. They're tools used until they break, then replaced. The women who operated them got the same treatment. Essential during the emergency, expendable after. The math of war production. But the math is incomplete without them. Every Liberty ship needed foundation work. Every foundation needed a bulldozer. Every bulldozer needed an operator. When the operators were women, working night shifts, matching production quotas, proving competence through repetition, the ship still launched on schedule. The war effort didn't pause for social adjustment. It moved forward on diesel fuel and welded steel and graded earth, and the hands on the controls were the hands available. Margaret Flynn operated a Caterpillar D7 from January 1943 to October 1945. She graded ground for 483 Liberty ship foundations. She trained 16 other operators. She worked 5,280 shifts. Those numbers exist in Kaiser employment records and production logs, buried in archives, uncelebrated and mostly forgotten. But the ships she helped build crossed oceans, carried cargo, supported invasions, and survived torpedoes. Some are still floating. The work remains even when the names don't. If this story moved you, please like and subscribe. Your support helps us preserve these histories. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from.